We got a interesting question actually in the chat right now. Is Purkinje Science and Technology a Dutch company? The name sounds Dutch, says Jasper.
Purkinje is actually the fibers of your heart, the electrical fibers of your heart that send the signals around the heart. And Purkinje fibers are also found in the brain. So I really felt that bringing the heart and the brain together, named after the scientist, can't remember his first name, Purkinje, but I don't think he was Dutch. I thought he was Czech, but I don't know. I probably should research it more. Hopefully he wasn't some crazy guy, but he did discover the Purkinje fibers in both the heart and the brain.
Very interesting.
So that's why I named my company what I did. You got to have both.
Yeah. Got to have your mind in it, and you got to have your passion, your heart.
That's right. I'm actually working on the, actually I have a web designer working on the site. I have someone working on the logo. So we shall see what comes out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, welcome everyone. My name is Don. The session runs from 10:10 a.m. to 11 o'clock a.m. It's currently 10:10, so we're going to get started. During this session, we're going to hear from Dr. Fralick. If you have any questions during the session, please feel free to type them up in the chat on the right. As a reminder, all interactions throughout this conference will earn you engagement points. So get those reaction emojis going. All questions will be asked of the speaker after the presentation, if the time permits. There's quite a lot of good stuff in here. Dr. Fralick is a senior technical leader with over 4 decades of industry experience at household names like McAfee, Intel, Medtronic, Fairchild Semiconductor, and Texas Instruments. Her process, product, and systems expertise spans statistics, machine learning, deep learning, and artificial intelligence through innovation, development, and implementation across 10 different markets. It's very impressive. In 2018, Dr. Fralick was named one of Forbes' top 50 women in technology and has numerous patents, scholarly, and media articles. She represents shareholders and industry on 4 different boards, and is a managing partner at Purkinje Science and Technology, something we were just talking about. Dr. Fralick is a PhD in biomedical engineering from the Arizona State University, concentrating on neural networks, bioelectricity, and neuroscience. Get ready to travel through decades of learning, both human and machine alike, a personal industry adventure exploring the nuances of AI through the lens of a self-described data wonk. Without further ado, it is my honor to introduce all of you to Dr. Fralick.
Thank you, Don. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for attending the room. And I'd like to walk you through a personal journey as well as an industrial journey of AI. And first, I want to make sure that everybody knows what AI is, because it gets tossed around a lot. And despite the fact that there are a number of folks in academia and industry that, in fact, somebody that I recommend in my last slide, that recommend that you don't need statistics. Well, I fully disagree with that. I think it's critical to understanding machine learning or ML, deep learning or DL and AI or artificial intelligence, because you cannot select the model without understanding whether that model is for a normal distribution or a skewed distribution, nonlinear distribution. You really have to understand what your correlation coefficient when you do a t-test or anything like that with Pearson's or Kendall's tau. You don't have to know these names at all, but the point being is that you really need to understand the distribution of your data. And if you don't understand statistics, then you won't know which model to apply. So we don't want to go from model to model to model and just jump at it. We want to understand the data first. Well, machine learning came along a number of years ago, and it's software-enabled. I like to think of it as software-enabled statistics. It recognizes patterns, and a number of years ago, and I'll go through that, neural networks came along. They were initially looked down upon because they were so difficult to compute. But with Moore's law, which I will discuss here in just a little bit, you will find that neural networks are very popular right now. Fortunately, my PhD focused in neural networks, but I can't tell you how many professors told me, don't work on those, they're out of date, and but I did anyway because it was the only analytic that really worked for my medical data. Neural networks really mimic brain neurons, and I liked it because as a neuroscientist, I felt that they were complex and mathematically complex, and they did mimic the brain. And artificial intelligence really spans just like your closet from clothes you wear to the beach, or tuxedos and formal dresses you wear to a formal event. Each of these, including artificial intelligence, spans from less complex to most complex. You'll find that things like Siri or Alexa, voice assistants, have a lot of neural networks, but they're not really artificial intelligence yet. AI senses, values, emotion, it has reasoning. We will get there, and they're not going to take over the world because we will always be more intelligent than our machines. We may not be as fast, but we're certainly more intelligent. So I believe AI will augment our intelligence. And with that, let me introduce you to Alan Matheson Turing, 1912 to 1954. Hopefully you've all heard of Alan Turing because of his impact on theoretical computer science. And the Turing machine, a mathematical model of computation that defines an abstract machine that manipulates symbols on a strip of tape according to a table of rules. Wow, that sounds a lot like computer science. So during his lifetime, he was actually homosexual, and he was arrested, and he pled guilty. And fortunately, after his death, or maybe sadly after his death, he was finally pardoned of those charges, and he was then given the honors that are so due him. He is known really as the father of AI, but John McCarthy from Dartmouth College in the U.S. actually has that title, really, the father of AI. And I think that's where you hear artificial intelligence given more to, because he coined it in, what was it, about 1956-ish. So he died in 2011, so he did see a lot of the things that are happening. Right before that, Walter Harry Pitts Jr. and Warren Sturgis McCulloch. I love Sturgis as a middle name. It's great, despite the fact that it's a North Dakota city. It's a place for motorcycles. They created the first mathematical model of a neural network, and you can look at this paper if you'd like. Unfortunately, Walter Pitts was a confused fellow, as most geniuses are, and he tended to alienate just about everybody he worked with, including Warren McCulloch. However, he is given his due with neural networks, and you'll see an example of a neural network here. This is a feed-forward neural network. What you'll see is an input layer, an output layer. If you have a number of hidden layers, like 3 to 4 hidden layers, what you'll find is that that's known as deep learning. And what you see here is just a regular neural net, but just maybe 1 or 2 more hidden layers and you've got deep learning. While they were all doing exciting stuff, I was being raised in a little later, thankfully, in the Great Northwest. So I was born in Seattle, raised in Anchorage, Alaska, and the backdrop of the Chugach Mountains. So I'm an avid skier. I've seen those -8 degree temperatures. And for some reason or another, I actually ended up in Lubbock, Texas, where I am today. Lubbock, Texas looks a lot like Winnipeg. I've been to Winnipeg, and they look a lot alike. Real friendly people, pretty flat, but really nice folks to be around. So Lubbock, Texas is the home of Texas Tech University. I got a degree in microbiology and chemistry, thinking I wanted to go to med school, because in Alaska Methodist University in Anchorage, now Alaska Pacific, I didn't feel liberal arts were really satisfying me, and I wanted something more challenging. So it took me a couple of years, but I ended up getting dropped off from a relationship in Lubbock, Texas, and going back to school and getting that degree in microbiology and chemistry. Well, while I was just studying, Robert Noyce and Gordon Moore were doing some exciting stuff. They worked for Bill Shockley. I'm sure maybe you've heard of Shockley. He actually brought silicon to Silicon Valley in California. And Robert Noyce and Gordon Moore were 2 of the Tratorius 8 who left Shockley, because Shockley, another genius that was just kind of challenging. And he was very upset when Noyce and Moore and 6 others left and started their own company known as NM Electronics. When they incorporated themselves in Delaware, it actually became known as Intel Corporation. And during the time that Gordon was working at Fairchild, he actually came up with Moore's Law, which speaks to the fact that the density of transistors doubles every 2 years. Now, technically, it's actually 18 months, but despite folks saying that Moore's Law is dead, they've tried since 1965, when he first started the proposition that transistors will double every 2 years, or 18 months, every 2x every 18 months. Moore's Law is alive and well, and I can tell you it's very important to Intel folks. Now, Robert Noyce is no longer with us. Gordon Moore is 93 years old and still a fixture at Intel. While they were doing exciting stuff, I was actually at Texas Instruments because I was working as a bench microbiologist when I got out of out of college, I needed some money, so I worked as a bench microbiologist for $5 an hour. They gave me a 50-cent an hour raise, which is a penance even back then. And excuse me. And so I said, this just isn't right. So I begged to be hired on at Texas Instruments, which happens to be just 2 miles west of where I live right now. I was involved with a gentleman named Joe Fralick, who, as you'll see, actually pissed me off when I left and married somebody else. And so at Texas Instruments, the first thing I learned when I walked in the door was statistical process control. And I had no idea what statistics were, process was, but control sounded really good to me. So I dived in with both speed on statistical process control that you'll see here. Really all it is a normal distribution on its side. And you'll find that statistically, as you get away from the mean, it's less and less probable. This SPC actually, as statistical process control, entered my life a little later, as you will see. And I found it interesting that the first thing I did, my first project, actually influenced my life later. And I really enjoyed statistics, and I found that I had a knack for it. So I married someone, and it wasn't Joe, because you never upset a lady, right? And we moved. That new husband and I moved to Dallas with Texas Instruments, and we eventually made it to Washington State with Fairchild Semiconductor, which again is the mother of Silicon Valley, where Robert Noyce and Gordon Moore started with Bill Shockley. And after that, we were moved to Northern California, and National Semiconductor bought Fairchild Semiconductor. And 1980s had a recession, and National kept me, but they didn't keep the husband at the time, which should have been a warning sign. But we ended up in Arizona. I started at Medtronic in Tempe, Arizona. Medtronic is the pacemaker company. They also make now they make neurostimulators, and it was at Medtronic where my love for statistics really exploded. So one of the things that they taught me there was design of experiments, or DOE. And that really, as you see from the 9-sided box here, speaks to the design space. And within that design space and the features or variables at each corner or of that box, within that design space, your variables and their weights actually move almost like a wave, obviously depending on your data. But it's really cool because within the design space, you can actually move forward within that box and move backwards or move up, and the weights will change. And it's really about the intersection of variables, the overlap of features that make design of experiments so cool. And you'll find that there's very few people now, I think, that are doing machine learning and AI that know about design of experiments, but I found it to be incredibly helpful in many of the companies I was with. And so Medtronic taught me a lot. They actually gave me a scholarship to finish my master's and a PhD in biomedical engineering. I loved medicine, and I decided I'm going to go back to school, even though by that time I had 2 boys. I was married, I was working full time, and they said, no, we'll give you a scholarship. So I was sitting there fat, dumb, and happy and thinking, great, I've got a scholarship. I will go full time. I'll come back to Medtronic. They promised that I would run their not created neurostimulation division for diabetes and brain stimulation. They hadn't even created it yet, but I agreed to it. I was awarded that scholarship, and I was very excited until Intel called me. I'd been trying to get on with them for 7 years, and in the middle of my career, I had to make a decision. Do I go full time to school, or do I go to this company that I really think the world of? And the reason why is because with data, with machine learning, with neural networks, with AI, if you don't have those transistors, if you don't have the microprocessor to compute everything that you're doing, then you're kind of dead in the water. So I don't know if it was the right decision, but I went to Intel. And Andy Grove made the right decision. He was one of the first employees hired at Intel. He became our CEO. Sadly, Andy has passed now from complications of Parkinson's. But when I started, he was there, and he was incredibly just passionate about what he did, passionate about his employees, and he drilled into his OKRs, objectives and key results, that everything, including results, has to be measurable. And he wrote a great book that I have a signed copy of, that success breeds complacency, complacency breeds failure. And the book title is Only the Paranoid Survive. So it's an awesome book, as is High Output Manufacturing. And he excited Intel employees, and certainly got my career excited. And during that time, during that mid-career phase, I really evolved those career demands to be more involved in. I started out with Biomedical Engineering Society, American Society of Quality, Society of Women Engineers, but then I got a lot more technical and really focused in. In fact, one of my mentors said, you should know everything about the basics and then start building up. It was some of the best advice I was ever given, and that was actually from Texas Instruments. A mentor there. So I really focused on more targeting the organizations I wanted to work for, volunteering, such as section chairs in IEEE or chairing the tracks, writing papers or blogs, speaking engagements. And as you can see, as my years in my career got longer, I have no idea what happened between 20 and 40. They just went by so fast. I got more specific and more targeted in what I wanted to do. So you'll see that now I'm part of the CDO forum, and now actually National Association of Corporate Directors. So I do sit on 4 boards. One of them is public, so a lot of SEC oversight. But during my career, I managed people off and on, and I think during your career, you will need to do that as well. You don't always have to do it, but if you are really good at it, there are very, very few good managers in this world. In my 42 years career, I had maybe 3 good managers, and out of, probably 15. So if you're really good at it and you have a passion about it, focus on that management side. But I really was much more technical, but I enjoyed doing what I did with small teams. So I mentored a lot. I became a mentee. I was sponsored, and sponsoring is when someone goes out and actually sings your praises, gives you opportunities, as opposed to a mentor that helps you with your career. I taught, I have continuous learning. Now I'm going through some finance classes with that National Association of Corporate Directors, and I'm a reviewer with a very high impact journal, and I sit on advisory boards. So again, don't be complacent. Start large, and then just start targeting what you want to do as your career progresses. Well, during that time at Intel, I got antsy, and I ended up having my spouse at the time, and I parted ways. And I ended up finishing my dissertation that's listed here, and it actually brought together neural nets, bio and clinical, personalized medicine, and stats, and that darn statistical process control I learned back in my first job at TI. Here I was raising 2 boys. I was working full time, traveling with Intel. I loved my job. I loved who I worked with at the time, but I wanted to go to school, and that school actually helped me quite a bit. Intel agreed to let me go to classes. So I went to Arizona State University. Yeah, it took a long time, 7 years for my master's, and Dr. Muthuswamy here was probably the most patient of all advisors. He finally got rid of me after 9 years in my PhD, and he did what 4 other advisors couldn't do. He got rid of me at Arizona State, and I graduated. So that worked out all right. But the more I did within my degree program, which was mathematics and statistics, the more I really leaned towards what Andrew Ning and Ian Goodfellow are doing. And these are current folks that, if you get an opportunity to listen to them, Andrew Ning teaches at Coursera, and he started, co-founded, and created Google Brain. Also was a chief data officer at Baidu. Ian Goodfellow is the GAN father. Those GANs are generative adversarial networks. Those are 2 neural networks that actually compete and fight against one another. And so what you see here is actually a picture from a paper that are all synthetically made from GANs. Now, there are all kinds of GANs now. There's circular GANs. There's it's just exploding. And Ian started it. He's not as vivacious to listen to as Andrew is, but very technical talks if you get a chance. GANs you will see in marketing, and you will see them just explode into our manufacturing. Well, as time goes on with Andrew and Ian and Intel, I got breast cancer, stage 4 breast cancer. And during that time, ladies, please get a mammogram when it's time. I decided I would retire. But smack dab in the middle of the bad chemo, I got a call and said, would you like to be the CTO of analytics of McAfee, because you're the chief data scientist of Internet of Things at Intel. You're the first chief data scientist in Intel. We want you at Intel Security. Intel had bought McAfee, and they had asked me to be the CTO of McAfee, of the Intel Security. And I went, Yeah, why not? So sometimes your choices aren't always clear, like going to school full time or going to Intel or staying with bench microbiology or going to Texas Instruments. Sometimes you just got to jump and do what you want to do, and you have a lot of sliding doors in your life. So McAfee spun out of Intel in 2017 and became public. And I stayed with him. I followed an excellent manager, probably the best manager I've ever had, Linda Grindstaff. I followed her out, stayed with McAfee, and I stayed with them for 6 years, doing data management, AI life cycles, proposing AI reliability, and AI policy. Policy is really the soul of an organization, as I was telling Dawn earlier, and it includes reliability of artificial intelligence. The life cycles that I did at Intel for product, they actually came in handy there with Intel security as I created AI life cycles for use with our company. And so I became very proficient in security analytics, in deep fakes, which are normal images that a malicious actor has gone in and manipulated the image. And also, we were the first security organization to research and strategize about adversarial machine learning. During one of my vacations, McAfee has unlimited vacation. And so I took a month, 5-6 weeks off, and I went to Antarctica. So this is a picture of my of a rock hopper penguin. He's got the same hair as me. So, but what you don't see is that I've manipulated the pixels in the middle photograph. And when I apply my my adversarial machine learning, he's actually now categorized not as a penguin but as a frying pan. This doesn't make the penguin very happy, and what you'll find is that malicious actors can come in and they can target your model, they can target your features without you ever knowing it. So a malicious site can now be considered benign. And there are hundreds of papers now on adversarial machine learning and very, very cool research. So if you're interested in that part of AI, as you can see, there's lots of different areas that you can go into. Now, for the future of AI, if I were buying futures on the Dow, it would be for generative adversarial networks, especially in marketing. So you'll see continued expansion of that. You'll see integrated heads-up displays for broad consumer use. And I'm sorry that the metaverse from Facebook is there, but unfortunately, I truly believe, and if you look at some of my talks earlier to Southern Methodist University in Dallas, I did speak to augmented reality and virtual reality requiring extensive use of AI, and augmented reality will become a part of when your career is probably I would guess probably a third of the way done, maybe halfway done. You'll see it being part of every day. AI policy, I have a talk right after this to speak about how important it is to Gen Zers born between 1995 and 2012, that environmental impact is the #1 concern of Gen Zers. It's critical to marketing. And so it's critical that anyone using a digital footprint look at their policy for AI in regards to ethics. It includes adversarial machine learning bias, whether it be gender, racial, or ethnicity, or actually volumes or feature space. Analytics and AI will be driven further into the K through 12 curriculum, and because the compute power is so highly needed for neural networks and other forms of AI, such as cortical algorithms, which are neural nets on steroids, AI chips are becoming a necessity, and there are a few out there right now. They're a little pricey, but it will become a necessity. One of the things that I wanted to make sure and leave you with is the fact that my career isn't over. Pardon me, despite the fact that I retired from McAfee at the end of January. I'm part of these board of directors and running my own company for consulting. And most of them are in my area of passion, which is all medical. Prime Genomics, bioinformatics, Aspira Women's Health is around ovarian cancer, and Innovatio is around palliative care and predicting hospitalization rates. And finally, the University of Houston, you can't see it under there, but I'm still an industry advisory board to one of those advisors that left me at ASU and went and started the University of Houston BME program. And he asked me to be a chair of his advisory board. And now we're switching it up, changing the chair around, rotating it, but I'm still on it and I enjoy it very much. The AI revolution is just beginning. But be careful what you wish for, because like the internet, there is good things and bad things about it. So we have to be very careful about our usage of AI and ensure that we have our AI policy and our government protections in place. So with that, I'll give you a couple of recommendations. My two favorite about learning machine learning and neural networks is from Jason Bramley, a PhD in statistics at this website, and Analytics Vidya, which is out of India, but they've got great newsletters and short tutorials. And I just love them both. And I've been following them for a number of years. And so far, I haven't seen any mistakes, except sometimes they say, statistics isn't needed. And I'm like, yes, they are. Absolutely. So if you're looking for career help, every one of us can be a leader, and the Leadership Challenge and Strength Finders 2.0, both of these changed my life, changed my career, got me focused in what I wanted to do, and made me realize the leader inside of me, inspiring others to act, encouraging the heart, and enabling others to act. And Strengths Finders said, you're an idea person, you're a strategy person. So I actually changed my career to really focus on that at the corporate level. So with that, I will leave you with one last quote. Data science is data science. It's not data art. So if you are going to pursue data science, please use statistics and all the science that's available to you. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I will take them now.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Fralick.
Sure.
A question that was asked a little bit earlier was, if one was to enter the industry today, it would most likely start in common areas like web dev, maybe server admin, stuff like that.
Mhm.
How does one progress into roles such as like AI engineer and data engineer? Like, where's the starting point?
Well, a good place to do it is right here. I would definitely start with some easy regression, understandings, the statistics, and some of the regression, and then take on a volunteer to take on a project. It may be customer output, it may be customer re-up rates, it might be something very, very small, but offer to do it. And yes, you'll have to work nights. Yes, you'll have to work weekends. But if you have the passion, the time will go by very, very fast. And that's, I think, one of the best ways to do it. I haven't found the most, kick butt type of master's program. I do like SMU's master's program in data science. Some of them, like Northwestern, I'm not real fond of because of the lack of statistics. But most universities do have a 1 or 2 year program for masters. But if you don't have that time to do it, follow Jason, follow Analytics Vidya, volunteer for a small project, and visualize your output.
Yeah, visualization is king. Elias asks, how should we deal with the garbage in, garbage out problem when it comes to dealing with a statistical model and the data that we feed it?
Great question. I think one of the key things that we learned at McAfee, because of McAfee and all security companies deal with big data, there's a lot of garbage. So you have to really plow through it and understand your data. And in fact, with some of the companies that I sit on their board of directors, we've spent more than a year actually analyzing the data, the volumes, the bias, their algorithms for bias, understanding the feature set, understanding design of experiments before you ever jump into a model. Most of the time, what I've seen is young folks starting out in their careers will jump into a model, create a model, and go, woohoo, I've done it. And what you can find is that once you implement that model, it dies pretty quickly on the vine with model decay because it does have so much garbage in it. So spend more time understanding the data. I think to me that is the most important part and not taught very well. So that's 80% of your time. And if you understand your data well enough, the 20% will go very, very quickly.
Very insightful. Gabriel asks, is there any way to prevent data science and artificial intelligence from being used for malicious purposes, such as deepfakes?
No.
Not really.
Yeah. No. Working for a security company, and by the way, they have very few women, and so you're just about guaranteed a job if you're a technical woman and you want to work in security. They are really in need of technical folks, technical women in that industry. But I was shocked at how much maliciousness there is out there. There is prevention. There is detection. AI works to help with all of those. And again, I'm clumping from a marketing perspective. It's a little easier. I'm clumping the stats, ML, DL, and AI all under AI, and you'll find that most marketing folks do that. And I finally threw in the towel about a year ago, saying it's much easier. But math nerds will probably argue with you that there's a difference. But nonetheless, no, there's mean people in the world, and all you can do is ensure that you have good, healthy habits around your compute footprint and your passwords, updating. And if, unfortunately, with adversarial machine learning, malicious folks can read the literature just as fast as we put it out there. So, the answer is no. You can't stop it. You can mute it a little bit, but you can't really stop it. Bad.
Yeah, it's got to stay one step ahead of everyone.
Always.
Yeah, so I'm seeing here in the comments that a lot of people are giving their thanks. There should be more people or more women in STEM. Definitely agree.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent session. Thank you for your time with us, Dr. Fralick. Everyone else, you could leave your thanks on the right. Make sure to follow Dr. Fralick on LinkedIn and any other platform. She does a lot of amazing talks and very insightful stuff in every one of them. At 11 a.m., we're going to be opening up the networking lounge. So if everyone can start heading in that direction. Thanks again, Dr. Fralick, for coming and inspiring all of us. Well, I look forward to actually seeing what you have in store for your next talk.
I'll send it to you for sure.
For sure. All right.
Hey, thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. And good luck with your studies.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye now.
Bye for now.